Well, hello and welcome to Business 360. I'm Ashmit Kumar, and here are the headlines that we're tracking this evening. The Wall Street bucks the global trend. Sensex and Nifty gain nearly 1%, outperforming their peers. Financial and metal stocks surge in trade. A strong rally in the US dollar rattles currencies across the world. Rupee weakens to move closer to the 80 mark. The euro falls to its lowest level against the dollar in 2 decades. Financial markets tumble across Europe and gas prices hit a record high after Russia halts supply, citing the need for additional repairs to the pipeline. European Union leaders say they are not afraid of Putin and ready to react even as they scramble for energy security ahead of the winter. Crude oil prices rise as the world's top oil producers get into a huddle. Investors expect OPEC plus nations to maintain or even cut output to support prices. Crude oil prices have declined for the last 3 consecutive months. Former Tata Sons chairman Cyrus Mistry dies after a car crash in Maharashtra's Palghar. The 54-year-old was returning to Mumbai from a town in Gujarat. The last rites will take place tomorrow. Jharkhand Chief Minister Hemant Soren wins the trust vote in the assembly as the BJP stages a walkout. Soren initiated the first trust vote after accusing the BJP of attempting to bring the government down. The Election Commission is reported to have recommended Soren's disqualification as an MLA for allocating a mine lease to himself. Several parts of Bengaluru are marooned for the second time in a week after heavy rains lashed the city overnight. All residents told to stay indoors except for emergency. More rainfall is expected through the week. Well, let's start with the day's market action. The Wall Street bucked weak global cues with the Sensex and the Nifty gaining nearly 1% each. In trade, financial stocks and metal stocks led the rally. Anuj Singhal is here with the day's quick market wrap. Anuj.
Very strong day for the bulls, and this is not after a gap up. In fact, the market opened absolutely flat, and after that just built on through the day, and the Nifty ended with over 100-point gains. The Bank Nifty once again outperformed as it has done over the last many days, and that index was up close to 1%. The Indian market has been the best performing market globally among the big markets, and this despite a general risk-off sentiment that you're seeing in the global market, where the dollar index has gone up to 110. Still, the Indian market seems to be outperforming. As I said, the large part of this move happened because of move in financials. So that was clearly one space where, again, there was outperformance. So names like ICICI Bank, Kotak, and Axis did well. Metals was the other pocket where we saw some gains. So names like Hindalco, JSW Steel, and Tata Steel did well. The heavyweight pockets, they also outperformed. So names like Reliance, ITC, and Larsen & Toubro as well were also higher. In the futures and options space, there was a bit of a return of laggards. Exide and Amara Raja were the top 2 gainers, both up between 6 and 8%. Indian Hotels has been on tear, up 5%. PVR was higher in trade. All in all, there's clearly a momentum in Indian market.
Right, Anuj, thanks a lot for that. Now, shifting focus to the money market, the Indian currency weakened against the dollar, trading just a few points away from the 80 per dollar mark. The US dollar has touched a fresh 20-year high in anticipation of further rate hikes by the Federal Reserve. In a major hit to the European Union currency, the euro has dropped below the US dollar for the first time in 20 years. The currency fell after Russia's energy supplier giant Gazprom said it will not be resuming gas supply to the European Union, citing oil leakages in the Nord Stream 1 pipeline. And well, speaking of Russia, the shutting down of this pipeline pushed gas prices up by a sharp 36% across Europe. Gazprom said that gas transmission would remain shut until the operational defects are fixed. The company had kept the pipeline shut even last week for routine maintenance checks. Europe has been accusing Russia of using gas supplies to blackmail European countries because of the Ukrainian conflict. CNBC's Steve Segwick joins us now with the latest. Steve, take us through what you're picking up, and how has the European Union reacted over closure of the gas pipeline?
Is there outright shock of what the Russians have done? Absolutely not. I mean, everybody who's game playing this situation, who is looking at the chess game being played between Putin and the West, knew that this was a possibility. But just let me make the point for a historical comparison. There was a Cold War, a vicious Cold War, an arms race between the West and the Soviet Union for many decades. The Russians never turned the taps off for energy coming to the West during that period. So President Putin has done something that the Soviet Union didn't do at the height of various crises over that period, turned off the taps to Europe as well. And is it logical? Well, from his point of view, maybe. Sowing dissension, creating a cost of living crisis, trying to create splits perhaps in the EU response and EU support of Ukraine as well. But crashing the European economy potentially, and let's be brutally honest about it, sending Europe into recession is not an outside scenario given this enormous price of gas. What I've been hearing a very robust response from policymakers. Now, I know from some voters it may well be a different response. I started off by asking Mr. Gentiloni, then Mr. Le Maire, about their reaction to what Russia has done. Let's listen in.
Even if the weaponization of energy will continue or will increase in response to our decisions, I think that the European Union is ready to react. Of course, we will have to save energy, we will have to share energy, we have high level of storage, and we are not afraid of Putin's decisions.
The key point is to pass through this winter without too many difficulties for European economies and European citizens. That's the key point.
In terms of the Western alliance as well, I spoke to Lindsey Graham, absolutely key US Republican senator, very, very close friend and confidant of Donald Trump as well, who may or may not make another run in 2024. He firmly believes that that the Ukraine can win the war, which I think is incredible, given the fact that he believes a lot of weaponry will go towards Ukraine from the West and from the United States especially. But B, he thinks that the Western alliance has become more coordinated and perhaps reinvigorated by this as well. So if Mr. Putin is trying to split up the West, yes, in the short term he's creating a lot of pain. Over the medium to long term, the policymakers I've been speaking to think he's made a catastrophic and historic mistake.
Well, staying with crude now, crude prices extended gains from the previous session ahead of the crucial OPEC Plus meeting later in the day. Major oil producers are likely to decide on cutting output to boost oil prices despite tight supply. Brent crude jumped over 2.5% after suffering steep losses last week. Well, back home now, there is still no decision on the GST slab for online gaming, casinos and horse racing. The group of ministers chaired deciding on rates met today. The GOM will seek legal opinion on the application rate and valuation base and submit their report in the next 7 to 10 days. Sources say the panel feels 3 games are different in nature and the GOM is open to the view of levying different rates and considering different valuation mechanisms for all 3 if required.
Talking of 3 different games. Yes. All games are not the same. And this GOM is being asked to look into 3 separate games which function in 3 very, very different ways. The gross gaming revenue is something that is applicable in, say, a casino, and the methodology on where and how it should be collected are areas which we are looking at. The GOM is going to submit the report to the council. So ultimately, it is the council that's going to take the decision. These are just recommendations, suggestions which will be given.
So when is the next GOM meeting likely?
We are hopeful that within the next 1 week to 10 days, we should be able to close this.
Well, meanwhile, India's services activity accelerated in August from a 4-month low in July. The S&P Global India Purchasing Managers Index rose to 57.2 in August from 55.5 in July. Any reading above the 50 mark indicates growth as activities in the services sector expanded for the 13th straight month. It's time now to head into a very short break, but coming up next, we will be joined by Williams-Sonoma's CEO, Laura Alber, on the company's expansion plans in India. Stay tuned.